Now, I don't know if you have an intro or if I just hijacked your intro or what.
I was doing one, but I don't care anymore. You
okay. Well, you can do it later and put it in. Technology, you can do it. But no, I was just going to say, because I stopped myself in order to allow you to push record in order to catch this, because what I was going to say, I think I'm not the only person that feels this way, and I think that you'll be able to relate to what I'm going to say, and I think that other musicians will relate, particularly young musicians who are, aspiring to be professionals, etc. But I was going to point out that there's a lamp. People tuning in now, there's a lamp behind me that I just turned off because I was obsessing over where it was, and if you could see it, and if it was growing out of my head, or if you could see the light glowing over my head. So I just went and turned it off, and Nick was laughing at me, as you do.
I
was
just said, I was like, all right, are you ready? I'm going to hit record. And you went, nope. And you got up. And I'm like, oh my God, is he really going to turn the lamp off now?
Yes. But here's the thing, though. And here's what I think people will relate to, yourself included. There's a certain amount, consider this. What do we do as drummers to improve our single strokes, double strokes, paradiddles, whatever it is? We obsess on it single-mindedly, and we spend hours alone by ourselves in a room playing single strokes, playing double strokes, playing paradiddles. And to do that requires a certain degree of obsessiveness. And I won't go so far as to downplay what real obsessive compulsive disorder is, but there is an extent to where a dab of that creeps into most of our lives. So yeah, I was obsessing on the lamp. And I thought to myself, as I was walking over to turn it off, part of the reason that I can play single strokes, or that I can play double strokes, or that I can play to a metronome is because at some point I spent a lot of time obsessing on that one thing, much the same way I obsessed on that lamp. That lamp probably won't lead to as much work as obsessing on singles and doubles has led to. But in any case, there you go.
The lamp made no difference. I didn't notice it till you pointed it out.
Well, it was bugging me, man. It was bugging me. But you can relate to that, though, right, Nick? You can relate to that.
No, I absolutely can, because if you were to see this wall over here that's out of frame of the camera,
mm-hmm.
it's so meticulously organized, where like it's, kick drum heads all right here, and then cymbal cases all right here. And
see, you're making me do this.
Like,
I don't want to do this, but I have to. I don't want to do this, but I have to. We're gonna walk over here.
I thought you weren't gonna do this.
I know, but you brought it up. Do you see this?
Yep.
Microphone clips, hard drives, GoPro gear, TRS to TRS cables, XLR to TRS, TRS to XLR, TRS to TRS snakes. Yeah, no, I can relate.
So you went one step further than I did and labeled all your stuff. Mine's not labeled.
Yeah.
But it's organized.
No, I get it.
Similar.
I get it. I'm sure it's similarly, if not more, meticulously organized.
And like my kitchen, there's like one junk drawer too, where it's just all whatever. And I have like a big Rubbermaid bucket of just like whatever doesn't fit in another space, it just goes in the junk bin kind of thing. Just like the kitchen, where it's like, all your flatware's in here, all your pot holders are in there, and then this one's got batteries and notepads and pens and greeting cards and like just anything.
Now, are you like me? I can't. So I've got kids. You have no kids.
I have no kids.
No kids. Okay. Well, I've got 6. So if you ever want to borrow one, you're welcome to it. But
you had like 6. 2 or maybe 3. I didn't realize you had 6. Wow.
Yeah, we got 6. It's a little bit of a yours, mine, ours situation, but now it's really like a mine situation, because they're all my kids, and they're all knuckleheads, and they're all great, and they're all amazing. But what I was gonna say is that they have the ability, like my son Brandon, who is 18, could eat a bowl of cereal in his room and then leave the bowl with the remaining milk and the spoon in his room long enough that you can actually pick the whole thing up by the spoon. Like he can work and think and process in that environment. I cannot. So to your point about organization, like I can't sit down and work if my desk is messy, right? That's got to be the first thing I do. I've got to like put things away and clean things up. It's hard for me to record if I've still got mics and cables from the stuff that I record. Like, it's hard for me to like sit and mix anything if I've got mics and cables going everywhere. So I kind of have to put things away and then move to the next process. Yeah, I don't know. It never seems weird until it never seems weird to me until I'm telling other people about it.
I don't think it's weird because I kind of do the same thing. Like anything I take out when I'm done with it, I put it away.
Yeah.
And it's the same way with just recording and stuff like that too. Before I am ready to like sit and tweak sounds or mix or anything like that, like everything else has got to be turned off, put away. If I'm not using it, it's got to get put away. You know, if I
don't do well with clutter.
No. That's the same kind of thing. And like anytime I get something new, I get a new toy or something like that, and it's coming here.
Yeah.
Well, I have to find a place for it. And if that means I have to rip an entire shelf apart,
sure,
and reorganize it just to make room for that one dumb thing,
correct,
I do that.
That makes perfect sense to me.
Like,
I agree. I was in college once, and I was sharing a 3-bedroom apartment with 3 other people. So 2 people shared one of the bedrooms. One person had the second, and then I had, the first. And yeah, I was able to control my room. The rest of the place looked like someone picked it up and shook it. But I was able to control my room. And one day, one of my roommate's girlfriends was over, and they looked in my room, and they just went, "There is order here." And I said, "Yes, there is order here. There has to be. Otherwise, I lose my mind." So yeah, someone once said to me, now I have, obviously, like I mentioned, I have 6 kids, and then obviously my wife, and the house is clean. Our house is clean. But someone once said to me, they said, "Nate, I have a feeling that if you lived alone, your house would be so neat, it would look like no one lived in it."
You know what? I applaud that. I like that. I like a clean house. I like a clean environment. I like everything to be organized. Like even when I'm at home, if I'm making dinner or something like that, half the time while I'm cooking, I'm washing the dishes that I just used and am not gonna need. And you know what I mean? Like I don't ever kept dishes in my sink overnight and be like, "I'll get it in the morning." I don't think I've ever done that once.
Well, those things kind of changed in my life with the advent of the multiple kids. So some of that stuff has to loosen a little bit. But yes, I am the same.
Right.
I'm the same.
I don't think.
Hi, this is Nick's podcast about drummers, where we do no talking about drums.
No, that's okay. But that's totally okay. It's open forum. Like, it just happens that we're both drummers. That's all.
Well, and I kind of feel the same, because at the end of the day, I mean, it's like, we're friends outside of just being drummers. So it's like when you get together and hang with your friends, you don't just talk about drums, you talk about life. So
well, exactly. And that's kind of the point of all this, is like being able to connect with friends and stuff like that, and be like having a way of like, all right, well, we can't go have dinner because things are closed. So let's hang this way. Let's do that. Let's catch up. Let's see how you've been doing, kind of thing. That's been the big question. Is like, well, we're at March 92nd. Is the date something like that, right?
Is that what it is? Yeah, I'll buy that.
I think it's something like that, because I don't think April, May, June, and July have happened yet. I think we're still in March.
Although I will say the converse theory of that is that means we still have 3 additional months of 2020 that wouldn't normally be on the calendar. And I frankly can't wait for this year to end.
I don't think you're alone with that. I think everybody is doing that. And everyone's already trying to plan and look forward to next year. And I had like a reality check actually just in the last couple of days, because I'm getting phone calls from managers and bands and stuff like that are like, okay, this year's a wash, so next year will be off the rails. And all I'm thinking is like, yeah, next year. And then I heard some other people talking, and they're like, well, a lot of insurance companies don't really want to handle venues when they reopen right now.
Sure.
And then
Sure.
then all of a sudden that like put the brakes on my excitement for next year of like, oh, I didn't think about tour insurance and
Right.
how that's going to be difficult for people wanting to
It's
go.
all going to be a process. It's all going to be a process, man. And I don't know that anyone is any smarter than anybody else in terms of predicting how that process is going to go. Because I was just having this conversation with someone else the other day, and it's like, all right, so when a band, like, there are several ways it can go, right? And I'm not a smart guy. This is just me yammering off the top of my head. But it's like, there are bands that were touring arenas, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or we're planning to tour arenas. So let's say it becomes okay to go to a concert again. Are those bands that were doing arenas, are they going to have to socially distance those arenas? Therefore, whereas they might have played one night in them, now they're going to play 3 to accommodate getting in as many people? Or are people going to go the other way and be so paranoid to go out to an arena that now, whereas they could have brought 22,000 people into a place, 3,000 are going. So now they're playing a theater, right? Conversely, same thing goes the other direction. A band that would have gone out and played a 3,000 or 4,000 seat theater, like the Palladium, right? Well, now if they can bring out 3,000 people, you can't have social distancing in the Palladium. So now is that band actually playing a 6,000 seat venue so you can socially distance people? How's it all going to work, you know? And who knows?
I have no idea. I've tried to go over it in my head of like, do you rope off? Is everything on the floor a VIP kind of section where they rope it off in parties of 10, 6 feet away from each other? And
yeah.
Like, no, all right. So example, for the 4th of July this year,
Mm-hmm.
I was supposed to go on vacation and they shut everything down here in California again. So I had to cancel said vacation. And instead, I went to an outdoor screening of Jaws
Yep.
at an art gallery in Pasadena, which Jaws is the best 4th of July movie, and I'll fight anybody who says it's different. Anyway, so for this, they only allowed 15 people in. And
where was this again?
In Pasadena, at an art gallery, which is basically it's a horror-themed art gallery next to the house that they used in the original 1970s Halloween movie.
Okay, hold on. I got to write this down because my wife is a huge horror movie fan. So when things are available again, I want to know. What's it called?
Okay, so it's called Sugar Mint Gallery.
Sugar Mint Gallery.
MYNT.
Okay. Sugar Mint Gallery.
They're doing movie showings every week. They're doing them I think they're doing Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, something like that. I don't know. They're doing horror movie showings every week. And so I went for the 4th of July and I went to see Jaws. They only allowed 15 people in. It's in the little backyard because it's a house that's like a 2 or 3 bedroom house that's converted into this art gallery.
Okay.
And I've been to a bunch of events there and they're always themed, which is kind of cool. The most recent one was all Stephen King themed. The backyard's really small. It's triangle shaped, narrow, AstroTurf, and they just project the movie on the back of the house.
Cool.
And you can bring a blanket.
What's the cover for something like that?
They just raised the prices. It was $15 a person, but I think it's now 18 or 20. It's regular movie prices almost.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But again, they only allow 15 people in, and you have to sit if you bring a picnic blanket or something like that, it's got to be 6 feet away from everybody else's blanket. Okay. Socially distanced back there. It's really small, very intimate. Everyone's there for the same reason. Everyone's friendly. It's pretty cool. You got to wear a mask if you get up and go in the house to use the restroom or something like that. But as long as you're on your blanket, you can take it off and bring food. And there's a really great pizza place down the street and a lot of fun.
Now, you said 18 a ticket. I'm sorry, Nick. I'm just clarifying. I'm just getting details here for myself and anybody else who's checking this out. $18 a person. But now, so what if you go with your lady? Then you and your lady sit on the same blanket, I assume.
Yeah, I was with 3 people, and there was a group behind us that I think was 4 people.
Now, is that 7 people or is that 2 parties?
That's 7 people. They only
interesting.
allowed 15 people in, so a lot
Okay.
of these sell out quick.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, of course.
I was trying to go to another one, and it by the time I even like looked at the tickets, it was sold out. So
Okay.
So that got the wheels turning about, well, are they going to do this with concerts? Are they going to limit the amount of tickets per venue, depending on the size of the venue, and then keep you in groups of no more than 10 and make sure that you're like roped off almost like in a VIP section 6 feet apart, and the only time you can leave your little section is to go through the aisle to go to the restroom or go to the concession stand or something like that. And I was like, that could work, but would it be any fun? Depending on the concert you're going to see. If you're seeing something mellow, yeah, bring a lawn chair, hang out, watch the show. But if you're at like a rock concert where everyone's usually on their feet and screaming and yelling, getting rowdy, is how long before people are just like, ripping the red velvet rope down and being like, screw this,
Have you been to a drive-in concert?
No, not yet.
I have.
Okay.
And it's interesting. So the last concert that I went to, or the last live show that I attended before all this, was at the end of January. I went to see my all-time favorite band in the history of all-time favorite bands, which is Fishbone. And I went to see Fishbone at a place called Alex's Bar, which is in Long Beach.
Yeah, I'm familiar with the place.
And and they were killing, and the show was amazing, etc. Well, Fishbone not that long ago headlined one of these drive-in concerts. And like I said, I haven't been to a concert, I haven't been to a show of any kind since then, right? So I was like, all right, well, last show I saw was my all-time favorite band. Here's my all-time favorite band doing this really, is this the new normal thing? I'll go and I'll observe and I'll check it out. So I take my 18-year-old and my 14-year-old boys. It's in Ventura. It's at the Ventura County Fairgrounds. We drive out. We hit Subway on the way in. We get our sandwiches and our chips and our cookies and sodas. We drive in, and anyone listening who's not checked this out, basically they broadcast. I'm thinking they're going to put like one of those like old like mono speakers like hanging on the side of your car. I don't know. I think it's like a 1960
movie.
Right. It's going to be 1960, right? But they broadcast it over your radio. So you tune the radio in to like 89.7 or whatever, and you sit there and you blast it in your car, and you're watching the band. And because it's cars, obviously, second row is further away than the second row because you're not just sitting in 2 rows of seats.
Yeah.
But I mean, in terms of comparing it to a traditional concert where you're standing shoulder to shoulder with people and jumping around and going crazy at a Fishbone show, then obviously no, not as cool, not as fun. Mm-hmm. Definitely, not the same. But in comparison to not getting to see your favorite band live at all, it was fun. And like I said, you sit there and you got your food and you're watching the band, and it was like they had wraparound monitors. They have monitors on all 4 sides so you could see the stage, because obviously in a situation like that, if you're parked at what is behind the stage, then you're going to be looking at people's backsides the whole night. It was an interesting experience. I'm glad that I did it, and I'm glad that I checked it out, and I would go again. Now, I don't know how long that's going to persist. Like, I don't know what the delineation is going to be, like the day that there's a vaccine. Yeah. Maybe it's like, boom, immediately Staples Center is sold out again. But, until then, I think that drive-in concerts are going to be part of our new, quote unquote, new norm.
I've been like super curious about them because I've been seeing photos online and stuff like that. You're the first person I've talked to that's actually gone to one. Mm-hmm. And part of me feels like I would enjoy the novelty of it, but I wouldn't want it to be my experience on a
going forward
basis.
Oh, sure. Absolutely. And how weird is it? Because you can't even, you can't applaud. They can't hear you applauding in your car. So you honk the horn. That's the thing. So they finish the song. Bow, 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 bow. It's like, that's what it is. Yeah. Did you hear the ooga? Apparently there's a 1940s Model T there.
I mean, I think you'd have to have a horn just so you can be an individual and stand out. Now, so are they playing, now if you're tuning it through your radio,
yes.
On stage, do they still have like?
They have monitors. They have monitors. No, there are no towers. No, they have monitors. So if you roll down your window, the sound that you hear will not be good.
Okay.
Yeah, no, they're not amplifying sound. And I can understand why, because in spite of the rules and in spite of them kind of saying, hey, everybody, unless you've got to get out of your car, stay in your car, only 2 people at a time from any party can go to the bathroom, et cetera, et cetera. In spite of that, there definitely were people who did get out of their cars to sort of gather at the front of the stage, despite the fact that the sound would be crap, from that. But, for the most part, everyone wearing masks. For the most part, everyone social distancing for the most part. So hopefully it'll be a thing that, like as you pointed out, I don't want it to be the norm going forward, but hopefully it will be something that's able to at least be a temporary stopgap until, we can return to sort of traditional concerts again in traditional venues.
Yeah, there's got to be fun ways to do it too. Like, so there's a huge drive-in movie theater near my dad's house, right? And when I was a kid, we used to go to that drive-in theater frequently because it was close to home, and like it'd be.
Where is this?
This is in Western New York, in Buffalo.
Copy.
So I have very distinct memories of going to see movies that I was not age appropriate for, but that's part of the fun of it. Like, going to see like movies like Backdraft. And what we would do is, my dad had a pickup truck when I was a kid, and we'd get lawn chairs and stuff like that. And me and my 2 stepbrothers and my stepmom, we'd turn the radio up so you could hear the movie, and then sit in the bed of the truck on blankets or lawn chairs or whatever, and watch it that way. That could be kind of cool for a concert. You're outside, you're still watching it. You can still hear it all right if you turn the radio up, kind of thing. That could be kind of a cool novelty for it that way. There's certain bands that I think I'd be more okay with seeing in that environment than others, though. There's some bands where it's like, no, I want to be close to the artist, and I want to. Sure.
Well, Fishbone is a band. Fishbone is a band that if you would have seen them in their heyday, or even now if you see them and you've got a good crowd of kids there, everyone's moshing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean that was honestly part of my. Not challenge, but that was part of what I wanted to observe as well. Like, I wanted to see the band that I love so much that in my college years I would have been in the pit for. I wanted to see how well that would translate with me sitting in the driver's seat of my car.
Yeah, the one band that comes to mind instantly thinking of it like that is Metallica for me, because I've seen Metallica like 3 times, and every single time I've seen them, somehow I ended up being in the front row, like against the guardrail in the front row every single time. The most recent time I saw them was only a couple years ago. And 5 seconds into their opening song, I was like pinned against that guardrail going, I am too old to be in the front row. And it was really, as fun as it was really difficult to enjoy the show. And I, in my head, I'm going through all kinds of weird emotions of like, the last time it was so much more fun. And then I thought back, I was like, well, the last time I saw Metallica live also was, quite 15 years ago, And,
right.
And now I'm like, I think I probably would have enjoyed the show if I was maybe back a little, sitting up a little bit higher, being able to observe the entire stage and not have this giant dude next to me throwing elbows,
Yes. You ever go to the Troubadour here in LA?
Yeah.
Okay. And so for people who might be watching this who don't live in LA or who have never been to the Troubadour, it's a small club. It's about 500 capacity, but of that 500, about 400 are on the floor, and then there's a balcony for maybe like 80 to 100 ballpark. And yeah, I don't remember the last time I watched the show from the floor of the Troubadour. Like I will find a spot in the balcony because I'm not trying to be in all the madness.
I don't think I've ever been there and been on the balcony.
Oh, are you calling me old? What's up, man? You have me on here to talk and you insult me this way to my face, Nick?
I'm saying that I wasn't smart enough to figure out how to get up to the balcony.
Oh, good save.
And
yes. He snatched victory from the jaws of defeat.
Right.
Way to go.
There you go. No, honest to God, like the last time I was there, my students were performing, actually.
School of Rock.
Yeah, and I went up.
Oh, excellent.
And that's where a lot of the parents were up on the balcony there. And I watched them up there for a little bit. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. But then I went back downstairs. But every other concert I've been to at the Troubadour, I was always downstairs. And for whatever reason, I thought like, well, maybe upstairs you have to have like a special VIP ticket for, and I just have the general admission thing. Like I did.
You just got to get yourself up there early enough to find a little spot, find a little square space for your bum on one of those benches up there.
Yeah.
So you made me think of a question, and it just slipped my mind just that quickly.
It happens though. We were talking Troubadour,
senior citizen again. Senior citizen, old guy.
Right, sure. We were talking Troubadour and the balcony and.
I don't even remember. It must have been a lie.
Okay. I can always cut that out.
So what are you up to? I mean, obviously you're doing this. You were telling me the other day when we chatted that you're still have your some students doing some teaching.
Summer's always a little bit slower anyway, but I converted all my students to online, and the majority of them stuck with it, which is cool. Not everybody did, but it's a hard sell to be like, we're going to take this thing we've been doing in person for however long, and now we're going to do it like this. And not everybody was cool with it.
Not everyone has a viable way to do it either.
Yeah, that's.
I mean, I have a kid. I have a guy that I see named Joe, and he lives in Northern California. And the bottom line is, where he lives, just his internet reception isn't super. And so we've gotten together a couple of times, but every time it is a little bit of a challenge, or can be a bit of a challenge, just because we're dealing with bandwidth issues. Yeah. So, even though there may be some people, so there may be some people out there who want to do it, but just, for logistical reasons can't.
Yeah, no, I've got a couple students right now that like they just don't have the strongest Wi-Fi connection in whatever part of the house they're in where their drums are located. They're just too far away from the router or whatever it is. But you still find creative ways to navigate it. For the most part, everyone's been cool. I had a really, really, really healthy teaching practice at the start of this year. And now it's a little more than half of what it was, but still a good amount.
I find that sorry, go ahead.
That's it.
I was gonna say, I find that what I do when I'm fighting the medium is I try to convey the thought or the idea in words, and then I try to convey it very basically as best I can through the medium, but then I'll go back and I'll make a follow-up video. And I'll say, okay, so here's what I wasn't really able to play because it wasn't coming through and I was glitching out or you were glitching out or whatever. Here's the thing. And I'll shoot it on my phone and then I'll fire it off to them.
That's not a bad idea if you run into the glitchy internet thing to do that follow-up. Right. I might have to try that with some stuff. I haven't run into too many issues, but like I said, there's a couple students that I have right now where like every time I have them, I'm like, I'm already prepared. I'm like, okay, let's see how their connection is today. And
they know that. Everyone kind of knows that that's a part of what this is now, I think.
Yeah, exactly. But we've still been able to get some good work done. And I've actually seen some real growth with some of the students too, which is kind of nice. But there's always a few too where you're like, you're trying to explain it as best you can through words. And you're like, man, if we were in the same room together, I could have it like that with you because we could do it at the same time and you could really see instead of, doing the monkey see, monkey do thing where I try it and then you try it because we can't at the same time. And
the other thing that I have to do, I have to make sure that I don't want to bob my head to what they're playing because I know that if they look up and see me, I'll be out of time to them and I can mess them up. Or I don't want to clap or snap, you know, to what they're doing because it won't be in time.
I lightly tap my thigh like this kind of
Right.
thing, but I don't do it loud enough that they can hear me. I just kind of do it for myself to try and mark their timing and stuff like that, especially if they're playing with like a metronome and they're playing to the metronome in their ears, and I can't hear their click. I'm just kind of trying to mark their time to make sure that I know that they're steady and not speeding up and slowing down with it.
Right.
So I try to be discreet with that because, like you said, if I start doing this and they look at me, then all of a sudden it's out the window because, you know, the timing.
So how much recording are you getting done these days?
More than ever. More
Good.
than before. So I've probably recorded on more projects, I'll say, because some of it's just singles, some of it's EP, some of it's full albums.
Yes.
I've probably done more projects in the last 4 months than I have in the last 2 years.
Okay, so to that point, I'm imagining that as an instructor, you're telling your students who are aspiring players, hey, you know what? It wouldn't be a bad idea for you to start thinking about getting a handle on Pro Tools or Logic or whatever their DAW of choice is. I'm assuming that comes into some of the conversations that you have?
You're assuming correct because I just did this past week, which I'm pre-taping this, so it was like a month ago. A month ago, I did a master class for School of Rock on drum recording. And it was everything from setting up your channels in whatever your DAW was kind of thing. Most people have access to GarageBand now because it comes free with every Apple product. And if it doesn't, it's a free download. I've got a couple students that actually went the extra mile and have Logic or Pro Tools, which is cool. Some of them are just recording at home on voice memos and stuff like that. And that still works too, because we talked about placement of whatever their device is that they're recording with in relation to where their drums are so they don't get a blown out sound. But we went from like setting up the channels, recording to a click, how to even go in and edit and line anything that might be a little bit off or something like that and edit to the click. And then a little bit we touched on mixing and panning and EQing and stuff. And I made everybody wear headphones for the whole master class. So that way, when I started playing with the panning and stuff like that, and they would hear a drum fill, it would be like right around them in stereo, and all their eyes lit up and everything. But a lot of...
By the way, I'd like to point out that you went... So in other words, you're mixing drummer's perspective.
I do.
I do as well. I don't know any drummers who don't, but I don't know any people who aren't drummers who do.
So if I'm mixing the drums for somebody, I always do it from my driver's seat.
Of course.
We're on my left, rides on
100%. 100%. Same. Well, because I'm envisioning if I'm playing it, and if I think that I was mistaken that no one that I know who is a non-drummer mixes drummer's perspective, because I do know non-drummers who do mix drummer's perspective. Because if you're listening to the track and you want to air drum it, you know, yeah, sure.
It totally makes sense. I don't know. I pay close attention to that when I'm listening to music. And so I've done like a couple of cover songs with friends and stuff for different projects and stuff too recently, where I'll listen to the actual version that we're doing and try to mix it exactly like that. So if the hats are on the right, I'm throwing the hats on the right kind of deal. But if it's just my mix for something like an original song or something like that, I always mix drummer's perspective. That's just the way I like it. And I always give, I'll send the client a drum mix, like a single stereo file that's a drum mix, where I mixed it basically to their demo and then bounced it down as one file.
Right.
And I send that along with all of the mono stem files as a reference of like, if I was going to mix it, this is what I would do. And then I let them do it however they want. But I've noticed a lot of the time they are actually using that reference, which is kind of
Good.
nice. So I
Good.
just got some mixes back the other day from a record I've been working on, and it sounds great. And I did notice, I was like, haha, he put the hats on the left where I put them.
So, yeah, I have a lot of thoughts on the whole, like the home recording situation. I used to, when I started way back at the beginning. So I'll tell you a really quick story.
Yeah.
Nick chuckles to himself because he says, Nate knows no quick stories. But, so not too long after moving to LA, I was living in a house and I had a rehearsal with a guy who's a guitar player, session player named Michael Thompson. And it was just in my garage. At that time, I think I put up some janky drywall job, and I had found a carpet that fit most of the room. And so that was basically what the room was. And he said, you should really consider turning this garage, into a room where you can record your drums. Because, to use his words, I think he said something like, you're probably not going to buy your house in Malibu, but you will always have a little stream of income as long as you have that available to you. And so I started down that road about 20 years ago. And it's a very steep learning curve. It's definitely like, it's not just like, a keyboard where you plug, left and right straight into the thing and you start playing away and there you go. And I happened at the same time to have a friend, my best friend, Sean Halley, who was at that time a DigiDesign product specialist, who makes Pro Tools. Mm-hmm. So those two things happened 20 years ago. And then over the 20 years, I learned more and more. I acquired more gear, right? I started with like the basic, like kick, snare, hat, 2 overheads through a mixer, you know what I mean? Then like I started getting some outboard gear. Then I started getting, more and more into it. And as I learned more about mic placement and how do you gate things and how do you use compression and how do you use verb and all of it, it all went. So recently, if anyone doesn't happen to know who's checking this out, I'm very fortunate that I play drums on this television show on NBC called The Voice. And so this past season, season 18, the season that just ended a couple of months ago, is right in the middle of when all of this went down. So as we're approaching our live shows, which would normally be live, normally be us in a studio, audience, contestants on stage, coaches in their chairs, the whole bit, we had to shift into remote mode. And it became like, hey, do you know how to record yourself at home? Hey, can you record yourself at home? Can you do that? And I just think to myself, if I had to suddenly attempt to jump into that, no experience, sight unseen, as they would say, I would have been sunk. It would have been impossible because to our bass player, Sasha had never really recorded himself at home. But with all due respect, bass, cable, pre, into the thing. One channel, no mics to deal with, no, even the fact that you don't have to have a room where you can make noise and actually push air. You can wear your headphones and go right in. So Sasha jumped into it. But yes, if I had to jump into it and learn how to route and place 14 channels of drums, which is what I'm recording most often, it would have been quite an uphill battle. So I only say all of that to bring that all the way back around, and the period on the end of this, or the cherry on top of this, is to emphasize to any of your students or anyone listening or anyone checking this out who's a drummer, definitely start getting your feet wet if you haven't already with the ability or in the medium, shall we say, of being able to record yourself at home.
Yeah, I can't further emphasize everything you just said. I just recently started going down this whole recording myself thing. I had never done it before this year. This room was strictly my jam room. I came here every day to practice, to run my paradiddles, to abuse myself with a metronome, and to learn songs for whatever band I was playing with. And other than that, it was storage for all my drum stuff. And
right.
And so I had all the equipment to record. I had it all. I just never set it up.
How did you come to acquire it?
Well, most of the microphones I had through necessity of like running into a situation at some point in my career where it's like, well, I have to have my own mics for a gig kind of thing. So it's like, all right, well, I have all the microphones I need and I have all the cables I need. And when I got my new laptop built a couple of years ago, they just straight up asked, what programs do you want on it? And we'll throw them in. And I said, make sure it's got Logic on there and I'll figure out how to use it at some point. And I dabbled with Logic a bit over the last couple of years, mainly to set up and edit tracks for bands I was playing with, like backing tracks and stuff like that, where I would set up their tracks in one session so that way when we would go on stage, everything's pre-recorded. If we're playing 40 minutes that night, our tracks are set start to end. It's 40 minutes. When I hit the space bar, we go. We don't stop until the curtain closes, kind of stuff. So I would sit at my kitchen table and do that, or I would tinker with little things and just kind of figure out how to use the program through trial and error. A lot of it. What happens if I twist that knob? You know, stuff like that. Doing some sound effects on a couple of records that I had played drums on stuff. But in terms of like recording drums, I would always go to a studio. If you wanted me to play drums on your record, well, you had to rent studio time someplace as well. And I let people that went to school for it and have more knowledge than I do, they handle it. I show up, I play the drums, I leave, and then I get mixes back. And I listen to it and I go, that sounds great, or what did you do to my snare drum? So really when things closed up and I one by one started crossing dates off my calendar early in the spring, that's when I was like, you know, I can't just come here every day. And like I immediately put my students online. So I had that going, which was great. But I was like, I can't, other than coming here and teaching every day, I got to keep myself occupied. And it's going to get real boring real fast if I'm just sitting here drilling stuff. I don't have any goals. I always had a goal. I always had a batch of songs I had to learn for somebody.
Right.
You know? And all of a sudden I didn't have that. And so that's where it's like, well, you know, the only thing stopping me from actually setting up these microphones and plugging stuff in is really that I didn't have like an interface. I just didn't have one. I always intended on buying one, just never got around to it.
Yep.
So I got one and plugged it all in and checked it out. And I was like, hey, that sounds pretty good. And I played with it a little bit. And then I just went down that rabbit hole real fast to the point where I'm getting deliveries of recording equipment here like once a week now. And I'm always like running into a situation where I'm like, this sounds fine the way it is. And I can be okay with this. But man, if I just rerouted this one thing and moved that mic over there next time, oh, I'd have so much more control on this thing, you know? And I just kept spiraling and spiraling. And the feedback I got was good. I haven't had anybody give me negative feedback on any of the stuff I've been producing out of here so far. Everyone's been really, really happy with it to the point where they're recommending me to others and like, oh, if you need tracks cut, Nick can handle it and this and that. And so now, like I said, I've played on more records this year than I have ever in a single year ever. And thankfully now I'm at a point now where I always again have a goal. Is I've always got something I got to record this week for somebody. Good.
You know, I think it's important too to point out part of the there's a certain level of intimidation. I was touring with a guy named Brian Transo, BT. He's like a techno dance artist.
I met him.
And okay, so
we played a rave together in Vegas. EDC.
That sounds about right.
Yeah, I played drums at EDC a couple of years in a row in Vegas, and he was one of the performers one of the years I played.
Completely. So Brian was really, if anyone is not familiar with who BT is, He is a techno artist, film composer, but lives and breathes primarily in the world of EDM, right? And I remember him talking to others about it and sort of overhearing conversations they were having about Pro Tools. And, oh man, do you have the so-and-so plugin? Do you have the this? Do you have that? Because if you have this, and you turn up to that, but turn down to this, oh. And I just remember being like, wow, I'll never learn that much about it. And it's very intimidating. So it's intimidating from a knowledge perspective. But once you get into it, you realize Pro Tools, and I would say it's probably the same for all of them. Logic, I bet, is the same. In my experience, Pro Tools can do 600 things. I only really need to be able to do about 7 of them. So once I learn how to do the 7 out of 600 things, now it's just about me learning how to do those 7 things faster.
Yep.
What's the key command? Instead of clicking on a drop-down menu and dragging down to the thing I want and selecting it and going over and doing that, how do I just go and have it do it, right? So you get through that. The other thing that I would sort of point out is it's also intimidating because I'm old, right? I think I've got you by like 10 or 15 years. I'm going to be, in a couple of years, I'm going to be half a century old, right? I'm 48.
All right, we don't have to talk age. That's fine. You got me.
By like 15?
No.
More?
Not that many.
Okay, well, either way, I got you by a little over a decade, I'm sure. But my point is, you and I are both, let's put it this way. Are you older than 30?
Yeah, you got me.
Okay.
I'm 37. So
okay, you're 37. Yeah. So yeah, so why are you messing with me, man? I got you by about 10 years. I'm 48. Why did you say, yeah, you're right, man?
10 years. You said,
15. Man.
I'm like, I'm not that young.
But no, but my point is, you're not a teenager. You're not a teenager, right? If you're a teenager today, you probably, maybe even if you're in your early 20s today, you probably don't know as a musician that once upon a time, there were these very exclusive places called recording studios, and they cost anywhere from $1,500 to $3,000 a day, and they included gear that cost hundreds of thousands of dollars recorded on tape machines, and the tape cost hundreds of dollars to record 3 minutes of music. And so when you're coming out of that, as I was, it's very easy to go, oh my God, this is going to be so expensive. Like, oh, like a studio? Like a place where I can record is going to be so expensive. Okay, everybody has a laptop, like, for the most part. I mean, let me not be too, like, whatever. But for the most part, most of the people that I know have a laptop, right? You just mentioned that recording software comes basically standard with everything these days. You can get a 16-channel, 8 digital ends, 8 analog ends interface for around $500. Most companies make something in that range. Presonus, M-Audio, most of them make something in there. And then you can invest in the mid-hundreds for like an introductory drum mic pack, right?
Yep. Yeah.
Some cables, and I mean, essentially you can be up and running. I mean, I know that $1,000 or $1,200 doesn't just fall out of the sky, but it's not like the kind of investment you would have had to make in days gone by where you're trying to buy an SSL console for $100,000.
Well, and now too, I mean, now you can go even less. We're going to get gear nerdy now, but.
It's okay. You may lose me because I'm not up on the latest.
Okay. So have you seen the Yamaha EAD10?
Yes, I have. It's like a 1 or 2 mic system that grabs the whole kit.
Yes. It's like $500.
Right.
Game changer. USB in, done. That's it.
There you go.
And it's astounding. I started with that. Yamaha gave me one of those to play around with for a few months. Mm-hmm. And I'm patiently waiting for my personal one to arrive. I had to give that one back. But I barely scratched the surface of what this thing can do. Mm-hmm. And that's what got me into starting to record stuff. So one of the bands that I play for, they started writing new material.
Which band is that?
That's actually this band, the Rhythm Coffin.
Okay, Rhythm Coffin. Got it.
So they started writing some new material early this year, and how the process has always gone in the past is Garrick, who's the lead singer and guitar player of the band, he kind of writes the material and sends it out to everybody for a little bit of input, but mainly here's your part, learn it kind of thing, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And so he sent out all the demos he's always sent out had, you know, just a generic pre-programmed electronic drum loop with all of the arrangement on top of it, and the drum loop is just there as like a standard. Here's the basic groove, do your thing, and if I have any suggestions, I'll let you know. But other than
doesn't really match the bass part.
Right, here's like the basic.
It's just there.
Right.
Right.
So after he sent out the first demo of what is going to become the new record that should be out some point before the end of this year, I said, hey, could you send me a copy of that without that drum loop on it?
Right.
And I could actually record drums to it. And they were like, sure. So I used that Yamaha thing, and it's like a kick trigger with like two little condenser mics inside of it. And it captures the thing, and how much of the mic versus the trigger you want, you can mix, and you can add compression and reverb and all kinds of sound effects to it. I can make it sound completely bonkers, or I can make it just sound dry and natural. So I just added a little compression to it, and I added a little reverb to it, and I just played drums to that demo, did a little mix on it, and sent it back, and they were like, okay, we're doing all of our demos this way now. So every time they finished a new song, they sent me it without the drums on it. I would put my drums on it with that thing and bounce it back. And then once I started buying all the extra recording gear and setting up the mics, I'm running 16 channels, and like you, I think I'm running 14 on the kit right now. That's when we were like, you know, we all have the ability to record from home. Why don't we just do the record? And so that's exactly what we've been doing the last several months, is we've been doing the record. We did all the demos. We got all the bugs worked out that way, just bouncing tracks through email. And then I wrapped the drums on it about a month and a half ago. I've been going through and adding my vocals and doing backup vocals on stuff. I got one of the mixes back a couple of days ago from one of the songs, and it sounds fantastic. They actually debuted one of the songs at a horror convention that was online, called Midsummer Scream. The original plan was it's down in Long Beach, we were gonna play an after party, and obviously got canceled. So the convention reached out to us a couple months ago and asked if we would participate in the live stream that they were going to do for the convention. And so we debuted one of the new songs, and the guitar player and one of our other singers, they sang and played live to a backing track that was the rhythm guitar, the bass, and the drums.
Oh, right.
And so they debuted the new song that way. As a live stream thing. I think it's probably on YouTube now. And like I said, hopefully that record will get wrapped before the end of the summer and then be out in the fall, kind of thing. But it was recorded 100% on our own, at our own place. I have not seen these people in person in months, and everything's been great. And I've been doing other projects with people all over the country too. There's songs that I've been recording for people lately that I've never met in person at all.
Right.
Live on the country. And it's awesome. It's
great. No, it really is. I mean, like I said, I feel like it's definitely a part of making a living these days as a musician. You know what I mean?
It's definitely.
Well, now it is, obviously.
I mean, it's been more than that. It's been a necessity to make a living as a musician at this point, where at this
point, for sure,
that's really how my rent's getting paid every month.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, no, it's really good. I'm glad that I took the plunge. I'm glad that you did. You're obviously reaping the rewards for it, and I encourage everyone to. I have a random question.
Yeah, I got an answer.
Okay, awesome. So, I got a buddy of mine.
Okay.
And and he plays really. Do you know Derek Roddy?
I know the name. I don't think I've ever met him though.
Okay, Derek Roddy plays like super heavy. He's like blast beat, double bass, chops, all of it.
Yeah.
Then I got my buddy who was a drummer full time, then kind of became my tech for a while, then went back to drumming, and the bands that he tended to play in, super heavy, rock bands. Yourself, right? Super, heavy stuff. Did you play on is there something called DK0?
Yes. Yes and no. Yes. So their album just came out. Yeah. I'm not on the album. I'm in one of their music videos, and I'm supposed to be playing live with them.
Okay,
but
so
there's no music, so there was a put to that.
Here's where I'm going with this. Derek, Steve-O, yourself.
I know Steve.
I know you guys all personally. Yep. All of you are like the sweetest cats in the world. You guys are like the nicest dudes, right? Album covers, you look like the most menacing, scary. I'm gonna be in the backseat of your car when you get in and jump out and whatever. There's someone else who just came to mind too, and I can't remember who it was. But another. So is that like a prerequisite? Like, it's like you do the audition, you play the parts, you kill it, you're wailing, you're jamming, and then they say, okay, let me see your mean face. You're like, and if you're just like, they're like, no, sorry, you're out of here. But if you're just like, with the beard in Steve-O's case, like the beard and like, but it's like, all right, or Derek too, like the beard and the whole bit. So what is that? What's that? Talk to me.
I think it's just a judgment call. You're not going to do a million stick twirls playing a jazz gig, right? But you are going to do that playing a rock gig. So I think it's just about, some personal inventory of like what's appropriate with this gig, what's appropriate with this music. And it's funny because the first time I met the DK0 people, right? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. They are super sweet and super nice. And
even though the song is called like Drown the Love and Turn Up the Hate or whatever.
Right. Yeah. So, and their songs are off the wall like that.
I'm not laughing at them. I'm just more chuckling at like the concept. That's
the thing is most of the people you run into in that world are like the nicest people in the world.
Right.
It's like Jekyll and Hyde. It's like the stage lights turn on and you're this other person.
So I don't follow a lot of bands that are that heavy. I listen to heavier stuff, but I don't follow a lot of those kind of bands. So it just so happened one day, one of my favorite things to do back when touring used to exist was if I was on tour and if I got into town a day early, I would go to the venue to see if anybody was playing there. And I would kind of go like, hey, I'm playing here tomorrow with so-and-so. Can you maybe find a way to slide me in, And I've been very fortunate. I've had a lot of fun concert experiences like that. In Portland, I was on tour with Dale Bozio, and this is years ago. And the artist playing before was Tears for Fears, like the night before. Not the same bill. The night before was Tears for Fears. And the artist opening for Tears for Fears was Amanda Marshall. And this is literally like 20 years ago, more. This is like 25 years ago. I met her drummer, who's a guy named Charlie Cooley, and he and I are like totally bros to this day, all because I went to that venue in Portland a night earlier, 25 years ago. But I digress. Awesome. One of these times, I don't remember the venue. I feel like it would have been something either outdoors or some sort of arena because the event taking place there the day before was Ozfest. And one of the headliners of Ozfest, well, hold on. Let me back up. I go with a buddy, a fellow bandmate, and like I said, I can't even remember who I was with, but I go with a fellow bandmate. We go in together. We're hanging around. We go backstage. We're at catering. Guy comes up to me, says, taps me on the shoulder, says like, we're at catering, right? Taps me on the shoulder, says, hey man, can you hand me a Coke? And I'm like, oh, sure, man, sure. Grab it. And he goes, oh, thanks a lot, man. Cool. Cracks it open. Appreciate it. See you around. Like walks away. And the dude goes, that was the lead singer of Slipknot.
So, Corey.
Right. So you would think you bump into him, and he's like, hey, give me your coat. Give me your coat. I want a coat right now. You know? But it's like,
No. So I've had like the same experience with the same guy. Corey Taylor is one of the nicest dudes I've ever met in the music industry.
Right.
And the first time I met him was the day after an Ozfest.
Okay.
They were doing like an off date kind of thing.
Sure.
And I saw him.
Sorry, I'm still just chuckling.
You're absolutely right.
Give me a coat rage.
Right, you're so right about it. So like, we're at the show, and after the show, I'm backstage in the dressing room, and this was back in the early 2000s, before anyone knew what these guys looked like without the masks on. Because
sure,
and you know, it's very public knowledge.
It's a little more relaxed,
right? But at the time, like, no one knew. You know, it was like Kiss back in the day. You didn't know what they looked like without the makeup. So I sat backstage after this show on a couch in a dressing room and had an entire conversation with a guy in a Slipknot t-shirt, and I had no idea who he was. And then eventually he's like, oh, by the way, I'm Corey. And I was like, oh, you were the singer. Oh my God. And he was like the super nicest guy in the world. And I've run into him a handful of times since then. Now, like, I don't think he'd ever remember me, because it's like multiple.
You might be surprised.
In between every time I see him. But he's always been the nicest guy.
Right.
And I played they do their own festival now called Not Fest.
Okay.
And I played Not Fest a couple of years ago. And not only does Slipknot have like the best catering I've ever had, because it's all really healthy stuff and all really well made and everything. They have the greatest catering ever. But they like came over early in the day before sound check and stuff, and came up to our stage as we're getting our stuff ready, because we had our own stage across from the main stage. They like drove golf carts up to our stage to make sure you guys get everything you need. Everything's good. Awesome. We'll come back and watch your set later. This and that. Nicest dudes in the world.
Okay.
On stage, and there's fire and goat heads and like.
So I'm gonna pose this question.
Okay.
And then we can pivot away from this. But couple of thoughts that come to mind. So the first thing is, I would throw to you, because I don't live in that world. So even though I'm familiar with Slipknot, even though I listen to them and own records and other bands similar, Meshuggah and so on, I don't live in that world, right? On balance, I want you to put some sort of percentage or some sort of quantification on how many of those bands are actually like that versus super cool, super sweet guys. It's the character that they play on stage, right? That's the first question. And then the follow-up to that. So my 18-year-old Brandon, he phases in and out of things, but he's kind of been into like WWE wrestling for a while, right?
Okay.
And like he's into it, like really into it, like knows the plot lines, like knows who's the heel and who's the not and all that stuff, but also knows that it's scripted. Right? So he knows that when they jump off of a friggin' ladder that's 18 foot high and do some smash, that there's definitely real, like, life and limb is actually at risk. But it is scripted. I've been to a couple of events with him, a couple of WWE SmackDowns and things like that with him, right? Well, back in the day, back in that other universe. And as I look around at the people around me, there are definitely some people who believe it's real. Like, they definitely are like, this is real. But then there are definitely people who know that it's not, but they are so enjoying just being a part of the story, being a part of the soap opera that's going on. So talk to me about the audiences in that regard.
So, well, I mean, if you're talking specifically like pro wrestling, I don't know. I think more people know that it's scripted than you'd think. I
mean those bands though. I'm creating a parallel. Okay, cool.
So I'm taking what you did.
Okay, copy. Now we should.
I'm working backwards.
Do it.
You went one way with it. I'm gonna work backwards. I think more people know that pro wrestling is scripted, and yes, there is great physical risk with it, but it is at the end of the day scripted, and all these guys are in the same locker room, taping
Right.
knees before and after, and hanging out, even though on camera they're screaming at each other.
They hate each other.
You know, I think more people are aware of that than let on, and I think people just don't care because they're having fun with it.
Right.
When it comes to music, right? I think it's more of a, and this is my personal opinion, and I don't think that I live in that world as much as you think that I do. I play in a handful of more aggressive bands, and there's a fair amount of gigs where I'm covered in face paint and stuff, but a lot of it is,
that's more than I do.
A lot of it is image, you know.
Right.
Like this band right here, the Rhythm Coffin that we were talking about. Yeah, I'm in complete makeup. This drum kit covered in blood was specifically made for them. But our songs are like Scooby-Doo meets Kiss. You know what I mean? Like we can play Harold's Birthday Party. It's fun, tongue in cheek. It's rock and roll. It's not heavy metal at all.
Okay.
I think when it comes to bands that are really, can you hear that?
Yeah. What is that?
Somebody's blowing fireworks off outside of the studio.
If this were like a horror movie right now, we'd be talking about horror stuff, and then like the lights would go off in your room, and I'd be like, "Are you there? Are you there?" And then it'd be like this horrible screaming, and like the lights would be flashing. There'd be like some strobe.
During my chat with Bermuda Schwartz, my lights actually did go out, and everything went dark for a minute. So don't jinx it.
I'm just saying. We're talking about, you know, the macabre.
That distracted me because I could hear it through the air vent, like somebody's out in the parking lot blowing fireworks off for some reason. I don't know. Anyway, so when it comes to the point I was getting to, when it comes to music of like bands that are actually like living that, oh, we're gonna kick your ass thing that they personify on stage and in interviews and stuff like that, I think it's less of a concept of like putting on the show versus behind the scenes being a different person. And I think with music specifically, it's more of a maturity of where you are in your career and maturity of your age, because I think any band or any musician, when they're just starting out, or maybe they're on the rise in their success or something like that, I think that particular demographic is living it 24/7.
Okay.
And as you get older and mature, I think that starts to tip the scale more. I cannot tell you how many bands that I've been a fan of for 20, 30 years at this point, that are all clean and sober. And back when their first 2-3 records were in rotation, and they were touring for 2 years at a time, and they were actually getting platinum records and stuff like that, they were just living every rock and roll stereotype on the face of the planet. And I think that there's a point in everybody's life where they start to realize that if they want to continue doing this thing that they love so much, you know, making music, then they need to start correcting or at least changing some things in their life to ensure that they have this longevity. And as a result, all these bands that have been around 20, 30 years or more at this point, all of them are clean and sober. I don't know any, off the top of my head, I could be wrong, but I don't know any like 45-year-old rock band that's still partying like they're 25. So I think that at that stage of the game, when you're younger, you are taking things very serious and you are like living the image. So if you're in this super aggressive metal band, all in on it 24/7. And then as you get older and older and older, then it's like, well, that's the stage show, and I'm going to go home to my wife and kids after the tour's done. And on stage, I'm still going to play this aggressive music, and then that becomes the outlet to balance the home life.
But you reckon that a guy like Corey from Slipknot, like, yeah. I mean, he seems like he would have been a nice dude pretty much all along. Like, he doesn't seem like he would have been.
He seems like he does, but if you go back and maybe watch behind the scenes footage and stuff like that, it's not like that. Because at that same exact night that I first met him.
Oh, this is gonna be good.
And it wasn't him, but I distinctly remember like walking backstage before going in that dressing room and entering, you know, and having a conversation with him before I knew who he was. I remember their drummer. Man, I don't know. I feel like I'm going to get called out if I start naming names and crap like that. But Joey Jordison, who is like one of the most famous metal drummers on the planet, I just remember him like riding by me on a little kid's tricycle and like turning a corner and running it right into a wall kind of thing, just being a goof. And I remember while I'm sitting there talking to Corey, having this nice conversation, Chester Bennington from Linkin Park is got a, you know, singing into a wine bottle, singing Roxanne into a wine bottle, you know, toasted with his arm around a security guard. And they're just partying and stumbling and knocking stuff over on the coffee table and stuff like that. And while I was having just this nice casual conversation with, you know, with the lead singer of this metal band, there was still some chaos going on around me and with some of these other groups. And this was all at the beginnings of their career. This was all like first album kind of beginnings, you know, where they're just getting their first gold or platinum record and their second album hasn't even been recorded yet or hasn't been released yet or whatever. And so there was definitely people on the road on that tour that were still living that life, and maybe he was just having a relaxing night off, or maybe he was nice all along and he's some sort of weird anomaly. I don't know. I'd have to sit and have a conversation with him about it, you know? But I do think it's more of a maturity thing than a percentage of, you know, 20%.
Well, I just wondered how much of it was, I just wondered how much you felt it was show. Like, you know, like I wonder how much you thought was show versus how much you thought, like, kind of like how, I mean, I'm not going to name any bands now because I don't want to get too far out of my depth, but kind of like how when certain bands came along and they were, oh, these are devil worshipers. These guys are devil worshipers. Yeah. Like how many of those bands actually were? Because I'm not going to say that none of them were, but I'm also not going to say that obviously that all of them were, anything like that. You know, so I don't know. It's interesting. It's an interesting sort of thing. It's an interesting sort of line. Because even like a guy like Marilyn Manson, like on the one hand you go, here's a totally brilliant dude who came up with this totally brilliant concept, who has made millions and millions of dollars and is very, very smart. On the other hand, you go, here's a very disturbed young man capable of disturbing behavior.
I think he's another guy that kind of tries to live up to the image of persona that he portrays. I've met him a handful of times. He's always been really nice, but I will tell you this, that the longer the night went on and the more drinks were happening, the more he became Marilyn Manson. If that makes any sense.
Sure it does. Sure.
You know, like from when he first walked in and we're standing in this hotel lobby after a gig and he comes over and he introduces himself and shakes my hand, really polite, really nice, to the end of the night when I'm leaving and I'm saying adios and really nice meeting you kind of thing, two different people.
Right. Maybe a little more erratic.
And yeah, and the, you know, what had happened between the starting and ending point was a lot of cocktails, you know? And so he's one that definitely, I think,
I understand,
tries to live up to it.
I get it. No, I understand. And, you know, here's the thing. At the end of the day, you know, I'm not in that world. Like I'm not in that world. And so for me, it is a sort of a fascinating difference. It's a difference. It's a fascinating side of, side of what I do, because I am a musician.
Yeah.
But I don't work on that level.
Yeah.
I don't work on that side of the point.
I think like I said, I think for the most part, a lot of it has to do with age and maturity at where you're at in your stage of the game.
Mm-hmm.
I've noticed most bands that have been around the block quite a few times tend to be more appreciative, tend to be nicer, tend to be more aware of their surroundings when it comes to just how they treat other people, how they treat road crew, how they treat fans, all that stuff. It's always this maturity arc that I see.
Hey, now since this isn't really an interview, and since we're just like shooting the breeze, and I can just ask you things that aren't whatever, this is random. On the subject of heavier bands, I'm on YouTube the other day, and I don't even remember what rabbit hole I had gone down, but this band came up called Ginger. Are you hip to this band?
You know what? Their stuff, like, I've heard of them, and every once in a while, like, their stuff pops up on, like, my Instagram feed, and I'm not sure why, because I don't think I know anybody associated with them at all. But so I've heard of them. But there's
about a 35 or 45 minute live show on YouTube that I just came across it randomly. I don't even know what road I was going down, but it came up, and they're fronted by this young lady, and I don't know her name, and I haven't really delved into the band. I just wondered if you happen to know them, because since you play in those heavier bands, I thought maybe your paths might have crossed at some point.
I've heard of them, but I'm kind of on the same.
You should check them out.
Same boat as
check them out. I'll find a link and I'll shoot it to you.
Please do, because
and the drummer is outstanding. The drummer is really outstanding, and he plays a really small. If memory serves, it's like kick, snare, floor tom, and like a handful of cymbals.
That's it.
And yeah, and it's funny too. Here's the interesting thing about it. They're super heavy. They're fronted by this girl, and she does everything from, I won't say rap, but she definitely has at times that kind of rhythmic approach to what she's saying vocally, where the rhythm is more important than the melody, but also sings, but also growls. And like, she has that whole range. The music is by and large heavy, but the funny thing about it is they're all musos. So whereas it being heavy and the concert ending with guys smashing guitars and setting stuff on fire and kicking over drum sets, like, the guitar player's got his guitar in his chest.
Oh, really?
Do you know what I'm saying? Like, they're musos. They're musos. The bass player's got his guitar, the guy's bass up here.
They went to school for it, and they're
which is legit. Like, I kind of like that they're not. I'm kind of, again, I'm sort of pivoting a little bit, and not to take anything away from bands who do go really hard on image, and not to suggest that they're not equally as talented or skilled on their instruments. It was just funny to me to see a band playing that heavy, but like clearly like music, like clearly like, what do you mean throw this bass? This is a $5,000 instrument. Like, are you kidding me? This is my baby. I bring it, so I appreciate that.
I do need to check that out, because that stuff pops up on my Instagram from time to time, and I'm not sure why, because I'm not tech savvy enough to know how these algorithms work. Maybe
probably cross referenced you with some other band or something.
Yeah, but that's how I had been introduced to them. But I don't think that I'm
writing right now. Send Ginger. Okay. I'm writing right now a note to send this to you, because I'm going to find the exact link. And it's like 35 minutes. It's perfect. It's like 6 songs.
Oh, that's awesome.
It's really good. It's really good. It's really good. My 3 boys, we're going to watch a movie tonight.
What are you guys going to watch tonight?
I don't want to tell you, because I don't want to lower your opinion of me, because you've just spent all this time talking about people being clean and sober and leading good lives and maturity. And I'm going to watch a really immature and inappropriate movie for my kids.
That's all right. I told you how my dad took me to see Backdraft when I was a kid.
Yeah, but that's inappropriate in a different way. That's not inappropriate in like a gratuitous sex and drug references.
I'm sure he, I'm sure I saw those as a kid with him too. I just don't remember.
We're going to watch Good Boys. Have you seen that movie?
No, what is that?
Oh my God. I saw it in the theaters when it came out. And so every now and then with my kids, my boys, so when I say my boys, I'm referring to Miles, my son, who's 20 years old, who lives with his mom primarily when he's not at college. So that's basically now. He's usually at his mom's. But he's basically come over to visit me this weekend. And then Brandon, my 18-year-old, who I got from my second marriage. He existed before me. Mm-hmm. And Lachlan, my 14-year-old. And so what you need to understand is that I have no shame, because I have definitely, like, when Ted 2 came out, remember Ted 2? Mm-hmm. I took them, we went to see that at some point. So I know. So Lachlan would have been like, I don't know, 11 or something. But it's like, here's the thing. I go in phases, right? And sometimes I'm in phases where I'm like, I need to show you guys very meaningful movies. We need to watch movies that are going to make you think. So, for example, me and Brandon watched Blind Spotting the other day. Have you seen that movie?
No.
Okay, Blind Spotting is set in Oakland and has everything. It stars Daveed Diggs, and it has everything to do with race relations and cops. It's actually very sadly sort of time appropriate right now. So Blind Spotting, or we'll watch a few other movies, some classics, but then also too we'll watch some silly things every now and then. So tonight is a silly movie. I've
been like soaking myself in reruns of Shark Week for the last couple of weeks, so I don't get to watch TV very often, to be honest. Like, I usually put it on late at night when I'm just winding down and I'm gonna fall asleep 10 minutes into it. And that's kind of the extent of my TV.
Good for you.
I did watch a movie yesterday for the first time in a while. Watched a whole movie, start to end. Didn't fall asleep. I love it. Serious Gourmet. That's great. Great reference.
Pulp Fiction. That's my. Right. That's my. I'm surprised. Or usually I would have my Kangol. I would have my backwards Kangol on for most public appearances, if you will. I have the backwards Kangol. And the guys on set in the band call me Nathaniel L. Jackson, which I appreciate very much.
It's all right.
He is maybe my favorite actor.
Yeah?
I think so.
I don't think I've never seen him bad in anything. So.
Well, he's bad in things that are supposed to be bad, like Snakes on a Plane. But it's funny, speaking of
in that movie, because that was
right.
supposed to be exactly
supposed to be bad. Like even have you seen Ted 2?
I don't think I saw the second one. I know I saw the first one, but
There's a part where that's fine. There's a part where Ted is talking to the main female figure in the movie, and her name is something like Sam Jackson. Her name's like Samantha Jackson, but everyone calls her Sam Jackson. And he goes, "Oh, that's really funny, Sam Jackson." She's like, "What? Why is that funny?" And she goes, "Oh, don't you know Samuel L. Jackson?" And she's like, "No." And Ted goes, "Have you seen any movie ever?" He's the black guy. Now, here's the funny thing, and I'm gonna close on this and get back to what you can get back on topic. But the funny part about that is Sam Jackson isn't necessarily the highest grossing actor of all time. Like, his paycheck to do a movie isn't as high as Tom Cruise or Tom Hanks or whoever. However, Sam Jackson is the highest box office actor of all time. Meaning his catalog of films have grossed the all-time greatest amount of money next to the next closest actor. And it's not even close.
That makes sense when you think of the movies he's been in. I mean, just the Marvel catalog alone, all of those movies are in the top 10.
All the Marvels, the Star Wars that he was in.
That's right.
Yeah, he's in a bunch of those. And obviously all the Tarantino films he's been in. Yep. Yeah, I'll have to look that up too. I'm making notes for all of the things that I'm going to follow up with you on, that I'm going to fact check and share with you.
That's
fun. So now I will let you get back on topic, and we'll try to bring it in for a landing, if it's okay with you, by 10 o'clock or so, because I told him to come out around 10.
No, that's totally fine with me. Totally fine. You'll be the shortest chat that I've had though. I've like pre-warned everybody. I'm like, so well, you know, the idea is to shoot, you know, chat for an hour, hour and a half. I have not had one so far that's been less than 3 hours.
I know, and I know that that's my tendency. I know that I have to admit, I know that's my tendency. Partly, I loosely booked the late movie to try to not do that.
No, that's fine. Having a hard out is totally fine with me.
Right.
It makes it easy. I did want to ask you something. I wanted to ask because you just started back to work with The Voice, which you mentioned earlier. You were like, by the way, I'm a drummer on a TV show called The Voice. And I was like, yeah, that was going to be my whole intro. I was going to be like, welcome to the show. I'm going to be chatting with my buddy Nate here.
Right.
And
I hijacked it.
For The Voice on TV. But you did that already. That's fine.
I hijacked it. And then people have been watching this going like, who is this guy with the glasses and the hat on? Who's he talking to? Who's that guy? And so now I hijacked it. I ruined it. Sorry.
So you're back to work on that, meaning like you're in the studio taping again? Or
so we started with rehearsals, and that was the band. And so the first thing that started, our first kind of foray into can we be in the same room together again, was band rehearsals for blind auditions, which started at the top, second week or so of July. Okay. And then that was us at center staging. And now we have moved. We did rehearsals with the band. We did rehearsals with the contestants at center staging. And now we have moved to rehearsals for the blind auditions at Universal. And coming up this upcoming week, we'll be shooting the blind auditions. Now, I'm failing to include all of the various regulations and stipulations and rules, of which there are many, and to which we are strictly adhering. So,
like, can you go into? Can you
I
share?
mean, yeah, sure. I can tell you all the different precautions.
I'm curious.
You're okay. Well, for the most part, everyone wears a mask all day. Everyone anywhere on set is wearing a mask all day. The rare exception is, as a band member, if you're doing something that is particularly cardiovascularly taxing, for example, you can take your mask off while you're playing the song, but then back on, right? And frankly, I don't really even avail of that. I pretty much keep my mask on all day, every day, as do the majority of my bandmates, unless we're eating, right? Obviously, our social distancing is of paramount importance. So we are set up as a band, minimum 8 feet apart, let alone 6, minimum 8 feet apart. The majority of the band is behind plexiglass. When we did rehearsals with the artists, they were behind plexiglass. They had a separate entrance into the building from the band. There are hand sanitizing and hand washing stations everywhere. We get tested multiple times a week. We have our temperature taken multiple times a day. Literally, we have to have our temperature. You have to have your temperature taken just to get on the lot, right? So start with that. Universal. So there are 2 systems in place. There is the voice production, which we have a certain set of regulations and stipulations. And then there's universal production, like to be on our Unilot, here's what you have to do. And those things kind of go together like this. Like, in other words, if one requires that you test for your temperature once a day, and the other requires that you test for your temperature twice a day, the once a day doesn't get absorbed by the twice a day. You're going to test it 3 times a day.
Wow.
You know what I mean? Oh yeah. It is absolutely a very serious undertaking that everyone is treating with the highest level of import and adherence to the rules, because at the end of the day, we want to succeed at this. And so it's like, if you look at sports that came back, certain sports that came back, they were like, bubble. It's a bubble. If we're doing it under this bubble. You're getting tested like this. You're getting temperature like this. You're getting treated like this. You're living like this. And this is what it is, and we want to do it. So you look at the NBA, 0 athletes testing positive. 0. None. Then you got baseball.
Right.
We don't want to be baseball.
That baseball is, 2 days.
We don't want to be baseball.
Cancel.
We want to be basketball. Yep.
Right.
We want to be basketball. We want to be basketball.
I'm wondering how hockey's going to fare now because they just started the Stanley Cup playoffs too.
I think they're doing a bubble situation though.
Yeah.
I think they're doing a good job. I think they're doing a really good job of the whole bubble thing as well. But yeah, so that's what's going on, you know, and it's intense. It's intense. But at the end of the day, it still boils down to getting to finally be in a room again with people and play some music together. So again, everyone is treating it like, wow, this is really fun to be back here, and no one wants to screw it up. So everyone is taking it very, very seriously.
That's good. That's really cool.
Absolutely.
Super curious as to how all of that was going to work because they're talking about TV and film productions going back to work and stuff like that. And then you said you were going back to work, and I'm like, how do you do that? Like I did a live stream concert in early mid-July-ish and like face covering the whole time and stuff like that. But even just trying to keep your distance in that situation was difficult, you know?
There are zones that are taped off in particular colors where if you do a particular thing, if you don't have a reason to be in that zone, you're not allowed to be in that zone. Wow. So for example, you know, when a contestant is on stage, one other person is allowed to be on stage, and I think that's Chris, our stage manager. Mm-hmm. Outside of that, if you have to interact with a contestant, if you're giving instruction or if you're with the sound folks or whatever, you stand off stage and they walk to the edge of the stage and you speak to them at a distance. I mean, yeah, no, it's serious. It is not to be taken lightly by any stretch, you know?
That's crazy. It makes me really curious as to how the whole thing's going to be put together at the end and stuff like that and what it's going to be.
Well, at the moment, we're doing blind auditions. So at the moment, there's no need for anyone else to be on stage at any point, you know? Yeah. And it's, so my normal day is I usually, like, even prior to all this, I rarely leave the drum riser. Like, I just chill on the drum riser all day. And when it's lunch, I go get my lunch and I bring it back to the riser and I put on YouTube and I sit on my riser and I watch YouTube and I eat my lunch. So my normal day-to-day, with exception of multiple temperature takings and the occasional tests and the mask, my normal day-to-day hasn't really changed that dramatically.
That's good. That's good that it's not like this huge upheaval and super inconvenient.
There's no high fives. There's no hugs.
Right.
You know, there's the occasional, you know, there's an elbow. We give you an elbow every now and then, but even that's rare.
Okay.
You know, and everyone knows that it's not because I don't love you. It's not because I don't like you. It's just because, you know, this is the way that we get through this.
We got to do what we got to do, and that's fine. And, you know, I haven't been really interacting with too many people. I'm mostly in this room by myself. So, but yeah, with a production that's a TV production like that, I was just really super curious, but I'm glad that it's working thus far, you know?
Yes.
You got to hope that things don't take a huge step backwards and get shut down again for whatever reason. Hopefully it'll keep, you know, heading in the right direction for you. So, cool. Well, you got anything else?
No, you know, I mean, I feel like we've covered a lot. And I feel like there's been some excellent information exchanged, and that's all I hope for any of these kinds of things.
I always got like this sort of list of stuff I like, bullet points I want to hit, so I'm not blind, because the last thing I want is like dead space, like you know. So I have like this little list on the side of like, oh yeah, things to talk about. I almost never look at it, and I almost never get more than 2 things crossed off that list in any conversation.
Well, you know, it's funny. So here's, I have my experience on being on the other side of that list is a lot of the time people will come up and be like, hey Nate, I had some questions to ask you. And I'm like, okay, sure, you know, shoot, you know, okay, I got a few questions here. Question number 1, ba, 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 ba. And then my answer will be so ongoing and verbose. Not verbose, that's the wrong word to use, but it'll be sort of, you know, ongoing. And then I'll finish, and then they'll go, okay, cool. Well, you know, my next question was, well, wait, okay, you answered that one. So then, no, you answered that one. like so many answers to the next 5 questions will be in the answer to the first one.
It's just easier to have a casual conversation with somebody that you're already friends with, kind of thing. You know, all the people that I've been calling up asking to do this too are just like people I know. You know, I haven't reached out to anybody that I've never met before.
I did a podcast once with a guy who had no idea what I did. And I have no idea why he asked me, looking back on it. But literally, like, it went like this. It literally went like this. So where are you from? Okay, well, I grew up in Nashville, Tennessee, and I did so before moving to LA and doing the gig that I'm doing now. Oh, cool. What gig are you doing now? I play on a television show called The Voice. Oh, wow. That must be cool. Like, what's that show? And like, oh, okay. Where's the exit? And don't get me wrong. I'm not suggesting that everyone should know who I am. Far from it. But I'm not even the most well-known drummer on my block. So that's fine. But if you're going to like interview someone, I guess you could do a little bit of homework. Don't you think? Don't you do that? If you're gonna like, I mean, granted, like you said, we know each other.
I was gonna say, I've never interviewed anybody before. But yes, ideally that's what's supposed to happen, right? And what I found is that I'll get I've been very fortunate. I have a really awesome publicist who gets me regular interviews on podcasts and magazines and stuff like that.
Right.
But I cannot tell you how many times I've had to answer the same question. Over and over and over and over and over, like constantly. Like if there's the one I always get asked is about the name Living Dead Drummer. It's like, where did you come up with that? And I'm like, well, check out the 10 other interviews I've done.
Right. You've obviously not done any homework. Right. Yeah. Yes.
So,
yes. Are you usually good about that, or do you sometimes get to be a smarty pants?
No, I'm never like that. I'm
really? You're good all the time?
Super good, super pro, and I never ever copy. Like if it's a written interview where a lot of the time they just send you like a bunch of pre-screened questions and you just type it up on your own and email it back, and then they edit it into the conversation.
Hold on one second. Hold on.
Yeah.
Come in, please. Okay, why are you knocking on my door like a lunatic? Just come on in. My God.
I'm gonna make an outside blooper reel out of this.
My 20-year-old and my 14-year-old just came in, and we're gonna watch a movie in a moment. Yeah, Miles did like the hi, I'm Clark Thiessen, and I'm talking about so and so on NBC News, and then there's like the idiots in the background that go like, look in the background. Anyway, okay. So, do you want to put like a nice period on this to sort of bring it in for a landing?
All I'm gonna do, I just want to say thank you for sitting down and chatting, and thanks for making the time to do this. I'm glad you're staying healthy. I'm glad you're working, and I hope that it continues like that. So,
yes, sir.
So thank you.
Yes, sir. You got it, man. Nick, it's always a pleasure. You know, whether it's an informal chat like this and we're just hanging, or it's someone asking questions, or it's an interview. You know, I always take any opportunity that anyone says to like, hey, can you participate in this thing with me? And I for me, it's like, oh, you mean someone might actually enjoy or benefit from what small little amount of information I might have to share? Of course. Like, how could I say no to that? So thank you for giving me this small opportunity to come on and chat and share and exchange knowledge. And yeah, man, keep on doing this. This is cool. This is cool. And if you ever want to circle back and see how we're going at that point, that'd be cool as well.
I probably will. We'll see how this goes. You know, if more than 5 people watch it,
I think you'll get more than 5.
We'll see.
I think you'll get more. I think you'll do okay, buddy. All right, Nick. Well, look,
shooting low.
All right. Well, what do they say? Keep your expectations low and your aspirations high.
There you go. Thank you very much. Have a fun movie night with the family. I'll talk to you soon, dude.
All right, Nick. Talk to you later. Peace.
Bye.